How's it going, guys? Hope you had a wonderful Christmas and all around great holiday season. Today I'm gonna give you the best Hearthstone decks to reach Legend with, according to the stats from the last 3 days. The meta is actually very different than top 1000 Legend, and you can see some really janky stuff up there, but from Diamond to Legend, things are still relatively stable. If you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be this Dragon Druid, and I did show it to you even in the last top 5, and it's still doing amazingly well, sitting at 61% win rate with above 6,000 games, which says a lot for the last 3 days. The deck is fairly standard Dragon Druid, but we can see some minor differences at the end part, with extra Alexstrasza as well as Malagos as your big chunky dragons, and that could be a good thing, but it also kinda muddies up your Summerflower Child, so I'm not the biggest fan of this change, but this is what the stats show, and we have to rely on those. The other change here is we have a couple of amalgams instead of the Snapdragon tethering package. And with Amalgam, you can definitely get some extra stuff, including an extra Splish Splash, an extra Dragon Golem, an extra Fae, and all those could be game-breaking, and they can definitely steal you the win. But yeah, other than that, the deck is fairly standard, just plain old Dragon Druid, so you already have seen it plenty of times, and you should know what to do with it. If you don't, check out some of my last coachings with it. Matchup-wise, very populated stats, and the only really bad class for you had been Pally, but nowadays it's not super popular anymore, so you do have a lot less of that. Same can be said for Priest though, and that's another class that's not super popular, so all around climbing should not be an issue for you. Mining Warrior, however, is just a little bit under the 50, but still pretty doable. Mulligan wise, here's what the stats show going first, and your Splish Splash is always going to be MVP, Cactus Construct is also insanely good, Summerflower Child I will only keep if I already have a good curve going, I would never keep any of the chunky dudes, Desert Nest Matron again is something you could keep, especially if you have Splish Splash, but I wouldn't keep it as a standalone card. Take to the Skies is also something you could consider, especially if you have a Splish Splash already. One on the coin, again Splish Splash MVP, Desert Nest Matron is great, here even Asheron Garden makes some sense, even though I would still not really hold on to this, I'd much rather top deck it later when my hand's a bit bigger. Summerflower Child a lot more keepable here, Cactus Construct is still nice, and if you already have a good curve going, you could also consider some supplementary cards like Amalgams, like Take to the Skies and all of such. Next up, we also have Trend Druid with about 60% win rate with over 40,000 games, so that's just huge. Like, this deck is super popular right now, it's super strong, and it's actually super cheap as well. Like, literally has only 5 rares, everything else is commons, no legendaries, no epics, no problem. Deck is just insanely good right now, and if you know how to play it, you should be able to climb easily. It's pretty much standard Trend Druid right now, you've already seen it plenty of times obviously. And yeah, the name of the game is basically tempo out, make a sticky board, buff it out of control, and if the opponent clears it, rinse and repeat, and that usually gets you the win. You want to be really smart about how you play with this deck against certain opponents, and you really gotta know what removal are you playing against in order to actually better your odds of winning. Some people are complaining that this deck is too simple, and that you just lose to any board control, and to that, I can just say stop overextending dudes, like what the hell. It's your typical tempo aggro deck, you just wanna build the boards, if the opponent doesn't answer it, buff it, if he does answer it, build it again. Like, it's really not rocket science, and calling a 60% win rate bad just because you don't know how to play with it, that's just wrong. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show. Again, Pallies used to be kinda bad for you, but those are not super popular nowadays, but also Naga Priest is also not great, so there's that. All around, everything else is super green, so no wonder you should be climbing with ease. Mulligan wise, going first, here's what we have. Again, Cactus Construct great. Forest Seedling is also amazing, especially if you don't have to play it on turn 1, so you can actually get a couple of trends that will discount your cultivation as well. Aerosolizer also makes a lot of sense. Witchwood Apple is not bad. Plot of Sin is also great, and don't always try to infuse it, by the way. Again, this is basically a free mana, couple of 2/2 trends, which again reduces your cultivation, so that can be huge. Herald of Nature is also usually a no-brainer, as well as Blood Trent, and Lingering Zombie can also be great, but the rest you probably wouldn't want to hold on to very often. As for on the coin, not much changes here. But even things like Soul of the Forest might make some sense, especially if you have a quick hand. For other good druid decks, we also have some Highlander druids doing pretty well, especially in top 1000. There's also this new Thaddeus druid out there, which can be actually pretty powerful if you can play it, but on these ranks people usually don't know how to play it optimally, so the stats are really not there. But in Top Legend you can definitely see some pretty good players with it. On the number 3 spot we actually have Mech Rogue, which has better stats than the other Mining Rogue right now, which is definitely a lot more fun and a lot more fresh to play. But like I said, we're relying on the stats on this one, so from Diamond to Legend, if you want to be hitting that Legend, Mech Rogue is the way to go. The best variant right now is still utilizing the BS with Thunderbringer and Neptulon, and you also get to pull Krakatoa that way, and I really dislike this combo, but the stats definitely show in its favor, so we gotta talk about it. It's still using obviously the Scourge Illusionist so you can get a copy of the Thunderbringer quick, and actually the copy of Thunderbringer can copy an extra Thunderbringer like that, which is not super amazing, but it's still an extra 6/6 taunt. It's not like you have more elementals to summon if you keep on chaining or something, but it's just extra bunch of stats, and we all know that Neptulon is the real goal here, to cheat out nice and quick. Other than that, Mech Rogue is relatively unchanged. You're still running the cheap good mechs, you still have Inventomatic, Coppertail Snoop is still amazing in it, the Spider can make some pretty cool stuff, Mimron can literally solo games, and a well-timed any Stormcoil can also be insane. Voltron is also pretty cool. You have some gear shift, especially you can use this if you actually top deck Neptulon and you can throw it back in the deck so you can cheat it out quick, but that doesn't happen way too often. But yeah, all around same old Mech Rogue. Stat-wise, you literally don't have any bad matchups from the populars, at least, so again, climbing should be great with it. As for the mulligan, here's what the stats show here, and going first, obviously you want some good cheap curve. With your good one-drop mechs, From the Scrap Heap's also great, Mimron can be amazing, Coppertail Snoop, especially if you open up with a frequency oscillator and turn to Snoop, that's insane amount of tempo for you. Your Scourge Illusionist is also great, and the rest you gotta think about him. As for on the coin, here's what the stats show. You're obviously never gonna be holding on to Krakatoa in most situations, like only 2.2% keep that. Scourge Illusion is still amazing, especially coined out on turn 3, and you still want your good curve basically. Like, only Mimron seems to be not that amazing, because here you can't actually tempo it out on the board and actually stick it, so don't always keep Mimron, especially when going second. For other good rogue decks, Mining Rogue is also out there, but like I said, Mech Rogue just has literally the same stats with, was that 20 times the sample size, so we obviously have to go with that one. But here at a close second, we also have a 58% with the Mining Rogue, and that is actually the better deck, especially in top 1000 Legends, so if you're aiming for higher ranks, you might want to check out my last video with this deck. We have several different iterations of Mining Rogue. There's also one that's actually utilizing Draka, which can be pretty interesting. But all around, that's it for Rogue right now. It's either Mining or Mech. On the number 4 spot, we still have Pally as a great contender for hitting Legend. And this variant right now is having pretty amazing stats, with 13,000 games and almost 60% win rate. So that definitely sounds like a great deck. Not much new stuff to talk about in this one. This is the variant that's utilizing Tyr, as well as a single copy of Horn of the Windlord. You still have the Countess and a Metis to get some extra stuff. Your Living Horizon or your Jitterbug could be the 4 attack minions you get to summon out of Tyr, and the 3 attack minions you get to summon through him would be your Showdown idiots. And obviously we have plenty of 2 attacks, so Tyr can definitely be a pretty good refill if the opponent finally manages to deal with your sticky boards. We're still running the nerfed Prismatic Beam, as well as the nerfed Keeper's Strength, because those were obviously way too good, and even nerfing them with 1 mana on this, 1 mana on that, and this now can't even go face, they're still just amazing board removals, and they help the deck tremendously. Matchup-wise, here's what it shows, and slow Death Knights would be not amazing for you, as well as slow Priests. Thaddeus Warlock can also be annoying, and same can be said for Highlander Shaman. For the mulligan, you obviously want to curve out nicely, Boogie Down is still MVP, Hi-Ho is pretty great, Jitterbug is not something I'd hold on to if I already don't have a great curve, and same for Hand of a Doll. If you already don't have a sticky 1-drop like Sanguine Soldier or your Righteous Protector, I wouldn't really think about holding that either. Prismatic Beam is something you could consider against certain matchups, especially if you already have the Showdown, Sinful Sous Chef is great, and if you already have a great curve, you might even consider Countess, especially if you expect the matchup to be slow. On the coin, the situation is not much different, but here even Living Horizon can make the cut, because you are gonna have a couple of extra cards in your hand, and you could drop this guy even as soon as turn 3, if the hand supports it. And a hand that could support this would be a Sinful Sous Chef, which gives you even extra stuff in hand. But you're probably just gonna have to hero power on turn 2, so there's that. Hand of Dull, again, you want to have a sticky minion on the board in order to think about this, and you gotta be against particular classes, like if you're against the Death Knight, they're still always gonna deal even with the sticky minion if they play at turn 1, so be careful over holding on Hand of a Dull. Hammer of Wrath you could also consider holding on to, especially if your curve is good. If you expect a high priority target you need to deal with early. And this also discounts your Garden's Grace, which is nice. For other good pallies right now, we have plenty of different iterations of Aggro Pally, Showdown Pally, which is basically the same thing, Urban Pally is up there as well. And yeah, All Around Pally is still actually amazing, but we don't see as many 60% win rate decks, which is kinda good. And in the last spot, we also actually have Mining Rogue, because you guys saw the stats for it. It's just way too good as well, sitting at 58.5 with above 1000 games sample size, so definitely worth showcasing. And yeah, this top 5 is limited just to 3 classes, which is not great. And we also know that Sludge Warlock is actually doing hella good, but again, according to the stats, these are the better decks, so there's that. And for Sludge Warlock to work, you really need to be good at it. Even though there is a 60% variant for Sludge Warlock from Diamond to Legend, but the sample size is less than 600 games, so there's that. I'll still show it to you when we reach to the Warlock class. But yeah, Mining Rogue right now is very fun, very versatile, and no games really feels alike. And you can win with all sorts of different strategies, including tons of Astalors to the mouth, a lot of extra Colossals out of nowhere, as well as obviously a lot of random treasures through your snake with the help of Drilly the Kid. Your best strategy with this deck would be to open up with the Shambler into an early 3-mana Scourge Illusionist, which dies instantly, and you play Drilly the Kid instantly as well, so you can get the Battle Cry as well as Quick Draw, Excavate Treasure, and after that dies, you're up to 3 treasures now. We also have Velorock in here, which can be an amazing win condition as well, especially if you get some random buffs, because this thing gets charged when you get the true form, and it's pretty easy to get the true form because you have so many ways of getting extra different class cards. You also have several different ways of bouncing those minions with Breakdance as well as Shadow Step, and we also have a single copy of Gear Shift, which could help you throw back your Drilly the Kid, so you can actually cheat it out and get an extra copy through Scourge Illusionist, and that can help very well. Matchup-wise, it's not super populated here, but here's what the stats show so far, and you don't really have bad matchups from the super popular ones at least. And as for the mulligan, again, stats are a little bit underwhelming, but we can still get a good idea that Kajamite is not bad, Shadow Step is something you don't really want to keep unless you already have a very good hand. Sir Finley is also in this deck, and that can help you in certain cases, especially if you top deck Drilly the Kid, so you can actually throw it back in. The weapon is also pretty cool, Scourge Illusionist always great, same with and also Kobold Miner is not bad either. Velorock is also something you might consider, but the stats here don't really support it as much, even though a similar deck had some pretty good stats showing that Velorock was actually your best third card kept. And as for on the coin, here even Queen Ashara becomes very enticing, because here you have an extra spell, and it's gonna be pretty easy for you to coin her out on turn 4, or even on turn 3 if you have Shadow of Demise, and play a Colossal as soon as turn 4, which can be insane. Flint Firearm is also something people hold on to from time to time, but the stats really don't support it too much, so be careful there. Prep can be good, Shambler's still great, Scourge Illusionist as well, and you could literally play this as soon as turn 2 and play Drilly the Kid as soon as turn 2 as well like that. But yeah, all around stats are kind of the same. For the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, we can see that Highlander Blood Death Knight is doing nice and good, even though the sample size is not that big. Plague Death Knight is still doing great. And it's basically iterations of those two. And let's see if Rainbow Death Knight is actually picking up any. And no, it seems like it's still sub 50, huh? For Demon Hunter, you still have to rely on Aggro Demon Hunter if you want to be climbing, and you can see this deck still doing well in top 1000 at least, but you really gotta be good with this one, and it's not as popular as it used to, obviously. With Hunter, Arcane Hunter is doing quite well. Highlander Hunter, however, has a good sample size and good win rate, so it's definitely something to think about if you enjoy the class. And Cleave Hunter is also usable, sitting at almost 58 with some sample size. With mages, Rainbow Mage is still your best bet, and this is just straight up Sith Mage at the top. And we have the biggest sample size, again straight up Sith Mage, but also the Excavation package is still doing quite well. For Priest, Naga Priest would be your best bet, although Undead Priest is also doing quite decent, and it's pretty cheap. Control Priest is also playable around 55%, and Automation Priest is also kinda decent. With Shaman right now, Highlander Shaman is your best bet, even though we did see Nature Shaman can hold its own from the Worlds tournament, so there's that too, but you gotta be good with it. Totem Shaman is still also playable, but nothing compared to what it once used to be. Going down to Warlock, here's the Sludge Warlock I was talking about, and this one's not using Thaddeus, which is kind of a good thing, because the Thaddeus variant definitely seems way too toxic and probably due to a nerf, but this variant of Sludge Warlock is definitely looking interesting, and it is basically playing the deck as it's supposed to. Like, you have plenty of different ways of getting sludges, you have plenty of different ways of actually discarding them, and yeah, all around, I think this is more a healthy variant of Sludge Warlock. Highlander Warlock is also usable, even though it's just around 56. There's also this other weird sludge variant with Steam Cleaner in it, which is looking interesting. And here's the Thaddeus Sludge Warlock, and here I think it's honestly massive skill issue with this deck. The better you are with this, like, these stats can be a lot better. And lastly, we have Warrior, where Mining Warrior is actually doing quite decently well. It's a control deck, it also has Reno in it, and yeah, you do a lot of excavation with this one. Control Warrior is also fine, with several different durations, both 40 and 30, and Rage Warrior is still usable even though it's nothing compared to what it used to be, and Rock and Roll Warrior seems to be not as good as I initially thought. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing at the end of the holiday season. If you enjoyed what I'm doing and found the video useful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video. Or stream.